Joining me today is a screenwriter who you may have heard of because he wrote a little movie called Sleepless in Seattle, only one of the best romantic comedies of our time. He's nominated for an Academy Award, a Golden Globe, a Writers Guild, and a BAFTA Award. And he's out with a new book called Attachments, making him an author. Jeff Arch, welcome to the middle.
Thank you, Ashley. And the middle is the place to be.
I agree. So without giving too much away, give me a synopsis of Attachments.
Well, it's a boarding school novel. A boarding school dean has a stroke in the first chapter, and before he passes out, maybe for good, he calls out the names of two men, and his wife knows who they are, but not why in the world did he ask for them. His son does not know who they are or why he asked for them, and the people he asked for don't know why he asked for them. And the whole story is the puzzle of putting together why this guy used his dying words. And the only person who knows all the pieces of the puzzle is in a coma for the whole book.
It's so good. I'm not quite finished, but I'm loving it so far. And since your career has been primarily screenwriting, do you prefer this book writing process to screenwriting, or how does it differ?
Well, I'm glad I went from screenwriting to books instead of the other way around, because a lot of authors have trouble adapting their own work. And I've adapted like 7 books of other people's, and I can see why they would have trouble. So I'm not going to have trouble adapting this. But, this just didn't want to be a movie at first. It wanted to be a book first. And I did try and write it as a movie, and it wasn't cooperating. So you tap into a different style for sure. I can't tell you which one I like better. I have one more movie to write and one more novel I want to write, and they're both hard. They're hard for different reasons.
Mhm.
With a movie, you get all this. You have this economy of style, and you have to use as few words as possible to say everything. And I got good at that because that's my training.
Yeah.
A novel scares me just because once you get in there, you don't know when you're getting out. You know,
Yeah. I'm super interested in this because like you said, I often talk to authors whose work gets adapted or is about to be adapted. So it's interesting that you're kind of going
how,
the opposite way.
what was your experience? What was their experience? Are they reporting to you that did they generally like what the adaptations were?
Yes, but most of them are not directly working on the screen portion of it. Some
Right,
are. And I
right.
find that, like, Deborah Harkness, for example, she did
Yeah.
Discovery of Witches and she was very involved still in the series. So I think that, it's hard to relinquish that creative control.
Yeah.
So I imagine it would be the same. And I feel like everything I put out that's my own, it becomes your baby. You work on it for so long. So then to give it to someone else, but at the same time, I mean, if you're going to put my work on the screen, then yeah,
Well,
take
that's the
it.
thing. A book you offer, you're offering it to people and whoever want to read it, and it is a one-on-one experience, which is
Yeah.
that's what's different. I don't really keep that in mind when I'm writing. I'm just trying to tell the story. But if you said you get to write one more thing and it would be a book or a movie, I think it would be a book just because of that, because I can't hide behind Tom Hanks. I can't hide behind, actors and music and lights.
Right.
It's just me and you, and
Yeah.
it's a direct communication. It is as old as, you know, almost as old as history, the written word. There was a spoken word, the written word, and I got to tell you, it just feels so good to be part of that lineage.
Yeah.
Everybody who ever wrote a book, going all the way back to those really decorated,
Mhm.
what were they called, folios or something. So, I loved it. This was a really hard one to write, and as you're reading it, if it seems like it's going by fast, then great. But it was
Yeah.
really hard to write this one. It took a long
How long
time.
did it take you to write?
It took about 4 or 5 years, but that was spread out over 30 years because I got the idea even before Sleepless. I got the idea back in 1988. Of a all I had then was a teacher, 3 students, a betrayal, and a runaway. And I think the runaway was going to go to India. So I knew those things,
Mhm.
and it just took a while to get it. And I went through several passes. We did go to other publishers 3 different times in the past. And thank God, I don't know how many writers will tell you this, thank God I got skunked by every single one of them, because deep down I knew it wasn't ready and they were doing me a favor.
And I read that a similar situation happened with you with Sleepless. So, if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about how your life and career changed with the release of that movie, and then how the failed scripts and the failed off-Broadway show kind of made, I would assume, everything all that much better when it was such a success.
Well, not only that, I know this is a cliche, but I lived the cliche, and I honestly, Jen, in every cell of my body, none of those things were failures. I learned more from that show, that first initial play. I learned more from that failing. Uh, I didn't fail as a writer. I mean, I measured up to every single thing you have to do, and I was 30 years old, and I was on top of it. I was handing lines 2 minutes before the audience was let in because we had chains and stuff. Uh, but I learned where I was on the path of a writer, and I learned some very good things about writing. Sleepless in Seattle owes itself entirely to that play, because I learned, dude, you need to have an ending. The play tied everything up and resolved, but it wasn't an ending. And then I noticed all great movies have great endings. So before you go into this one again with all the disappointment and all the rejection, before you go into this again, start with the ending. So, well, how about an ending on top of the Empire State Building on Valentine's Day with 2 people who do not know each other? And
It still gives me chills. It's amazing. And are you friends with Tom Hanks?
no, I'm not friends with Tom Hanks. I mean, if I called Tom Hanks, I would get a call back, probably, I'm sure. I'm sending Tom and Rita a copy of the book.
Nice.
And just to, I wouldn't care if they had 0 Instagram followers, just because I want to share this book with them, because they were obviously in the movie business for a while before I came along. But that was like a defining point. That movie sent those 3 careers into the stratosphere. I mean, look at Tom. He had his movies. He had his Turner and Hooch and his and a couple of good movies. But he switched agencies, I think, right around then. And for him to go from League of Their Own, which was sort of his way back in on a real prestige picture, his next thing was going to be really important. So there's a lot of pressure. And this is one where Nora really talked him into it, really muscled him into doing this thing. Nora could be very commanding, and it's very hard to say no when she's adamant about something. So, and then his career, man, right after that, Forrest Gump, Philadelphia, boom, boom, boom.
And I
boom,
cannot
boom.
imagine Sleepless in Seattle without Tom Hanks. Like, it's so insane to think about. Did you have anyone up for the role other than Tom that came
Oh,
close?
gosh. There were different combinations. At one point, well, I wrote the original script with Meg Ryan and Kevin Costner in mind. And
Okay.
that gives you a sense of what the script, but it was the same story and the same characters. It was just a little more wistful, and like Kevin, a little laconic, not that sharp, edgy thing that Tom can do. And when they wanted more comedy and everything, I don't know that Kevin bowed out or they just stopped looking at him. They didn't go straight to Tom. At one point, it was going to be Dennis Quaid and Kim Basinger. And
Okay. Weird.
and at one point, it was going to Julia Roberts was going to do it, and Gary Marshall was going to direct. And at one, I heard about Daryl Hannah. I heard about Demi Moore, Madonna. But listen, those are all good actors, and they
Yeah.
all could have done Annie, but only Meg Ryan could be Annie.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
that's the
And
difference.
and do you see your career as like pre Sleepless in Seattle and post, or
Oh,
is
absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
But there's all the common cliche ways that we think about that.
Yeah.
But the real answer to that question is that every night I can go to bed and I can bring up that grin that
Yeah.
I was sitting in a cluttered, you know, utility room in Virginia and looked up through a skylight and thought of an idea that we are still talking about 30 years later. That grin, yeah, my career did great things, obviously, and I'm so grateful. I mean, my God, the chance to do what I do and get paid for it and all that stuff. But the grin is just knowing I took something that everybody said was impossible And it happened not just by me. I was just the first guy, but it happened in such a gigantic way.
I love that. And I love any story that gives hope to a project or to a dream that maybe people have been telling you no. If you keep going for it and if you believe in it, then it could be Sleepless in Seattle. So thank you
All
for
I
being
tell
that
people,
example.
what I tell people is, don't ever quit because somebody tells you to quit. If there's a time when it's just the punishment just isn't worth it, and that's a decision you want to make, go ahead and make it. No blame, no shame. But one thing I ask a lot of writers who come to me and who say they're serious, the question is, you can learn this stuff, but how much punishment can you take?
Right.
Because there's a lot. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop now. Uh, there's always somebody taking a shot, and you never see where it's coming from. But life has been better in every single way since that movie happened than it was before.
So before I let you go, For Attachments, which is out now, everybody get the book, read the book. In
It
your
just happens to
mind,
look like this. So
beautiful. My physical copy is on its way too. It's so pretty. If you were to cast the show right off the top of your head, the miniseries or movie, who would be in it?
oh, I don't know. I mean, there's two answers to that, and one is that who wouldn't want Carey Mulligan to play Laura? I mean, she's
Love
got
that.
over the years. I would have said Naomi Watts, but that era has passed. She can't do 35 anymore because the actor playing Laura has to do 35 and 25.
Okay.
But the teenage Laura, I mean, the teenagers have to be a completely different group.
Well, I'll be 35. How old am I? I just turned 34. So if I act sometimes if you need somebody.
34 and
I could look young.
but here's the outside. I, you can do 25 for sure. I'm sure
Thanks.
you've been told that. There was a show on one of these international channels I get, a Swedish show about a reporter named Annika Bengtsson or something.
Okay.
And I'm watching this actress and I just go, I know she's Swedish, but that's Laura. There she is. I mean, Carey Mulligan, absolutely. And the idea of bringing a Swedish actor over here to do it, it's not unheard of. But here's the weird thing. I got in touch with her. I mean, Facebook and all this stuff, Instagram.
Amazing.
So now we're communicating back and forth, and just what a cool thing if that actually happened, because she is Laura. I mean, my God, the look, and there's even a scene with her family. But anyway, if I can make that happen, her name is Malene Krepin, and if anybody sees this and has heard of her, it's a great show. But what I found is, just like Sleepless, the right people are going to come along whenever it happens. And also the wrong people are going to come along too, but the thing will be strong enough to shake them off. And that's exactly what happened with Sleepless. The right people came, the wrong people circled around, and they were shaken off. Sometimes things are just too much of a force to be reckoned with. And I'm not saying that about me. It isn't me. It's this thing that's out there now. And I think Attachments has the same kind of hold on people, but for different reasons. This is a love story without the fairy dust. These people really have to earn it. And there's a lot of questions. I don't know you, Ashley, personally, but if you ever stood in front of a mirror and said, what the hell has happened in my life? How did I get here? What am I supposed to do? This is the book for that.
I think everybody has a little bit of that at some point in time, but yeah, it's so good. Everybody needs to read it. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. And I can't wait to see what's next for this story and for you. So thank you.
Take care. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Bye.